Hi, I'm Fiona Potts, editor of Dulcimer Players News. In August 2023, Kevin Roth and I talked about his latest projects, the book and accompanying album Between the Notes, and his latest album, Dulcimer Dreamland. I wanted to start off with the last time you were featured. Yep, that one here. This was May of 2019, 4 years ago. And they were talking about your latest album at the time, which was The Deviant Dulcimerist, and about Butterfly Boy, the dulcimer that Joan Lapidus made for you. But it's been 4 years and a pandemic since then. So, what are you up to now? You've got a new book and a new album, and I'd like you to tell us about them a little bit. And I am going to just switch the viewer here, I think, too. There. That should be better.
Okay. Well, shortly after I think that article came out, someone suggested that I teach people what I did to survive melanoma, which is what I wrote my book Between the Notes about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became what some people call a life coach, or other people call just a teacher. Someone recently said I was a lifestyle consultant. And I was just recently introduced at the Redwood Dulcimer Festival as a self-help guru, which I don't think I am, but I thought it was funny. And I used the dulcimer, and still do, to teach something called dulci meditation, which is a process of playing the dulcimer to kind of occupy the mind while you're at the same time asking your inner self, what do I need to know? So if you think of a baby in a crib that's crying and you wind up that little toy,
Mm-hmm.
baby's attention goes to that and it stops crying over whatever it was. That's what dulci meditation does. So it's almost like a parent putting a kid in a room to play so that you can get something done. So dulci meditation is a very simple thing, and I've given many workshops on it, and I teach it to my clients.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dulcimer created for that specifically. It's called the Cosmic Dulcimer.
Right.
So it has sound holes of the planets, and it's made with spruce and cherry. So it has a very meditative and mellow kind of a sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Cosmic Wink Dulcimer. And so that was the big shift after that article
Mm-hmm.
came out. I kind of turned my music business into my lifestyle coaching business.
Yeah.
And it's been a great success.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I had a quote from that article. You said the old formula doesn't work anymore. I don't know how people make a living at it, at being a musician. But you said, I'm not going to stop creating, and you're going to do things you love and book gigs that you love. So that sounds like you just made that pivot right after the article came out.
Yeah, it was sort of by accident, because someone asked me what am I going to do next, and I said, well, probably try and book a tour, because people don't necessarily buy CDs; they download everything nowadays. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they don't pay for musicians what they used to anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I was going to try and tour, and he said, well, you've got 60 some records. Why don't you just teach people, become a teacher of
Mm-hmm.
how you moved from the Midwest, where you were not happy, and sort of recreated a life in your head, sort of this fantasy life of living in San Diego near the beach with your dog Bosco and dulcimers and paintings, and how you pulled that off successfully when everyone said you couldn't, not only because it was very expensive to live in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
but I managed to find a great one-bedroom apartment near the beach for $1,000 a month. And most importantly is that I had 4 oncologists tell me I'd be dead in 2 years because there was no cure for the stage 3 melanoma. Never came back, and I'm alive and well, and as they say, not living in Paris.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I did read the book, and it was just incredibly eye-opening. You kind of did the opposite of what we did. We just moved from San Diego to Omaha, and you moved from the Great Plains. to San Diego, and the way the weather is today, it's hot. I would much rather be out in San Diego again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you were talking a little bit about the book Between the Notes. Um, and sorry, my phones are so noisy. Um, and I wanted to talk about another article that you had written for DPN in 2018, and this was Voice and Dulcimer. And in that article, you said giving the song space is important. Whatever it takes to open up the expression of each song, it's the space between the notes that make it music in many cases. So I guess this between the notes idea has maybe been knocking around in your head for a while, even before deciding to become the life coach, or not guru, but
Yeah. More of a teacher.
yeah.
Yeah, I always find that simplicity is better. And in the 70s, when I started getting known as a dulcimer player, it was as an innovative dulcimer player. I was doing a lot of things that people are now starting to do on the dulcimer back, I guess, 50 some years ago. But now I've gone back to almost very, very simple playing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my last album that I just came out with, Dulcimer Dreamland,
Mm-hmm.
I know you want to talk about a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
based on the idea of just one dulcimer, no overdubs, no voices, just let that dulcimer sing expressively.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the space between the notes. It's quieting the mind and letting authenticity emerge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The book, or sorry, the album Dulcimer Dreamland. It says instrumental lullabies and other dulcimer ditties, but it's not a children's lullaby album, really. It's not kids songs. It's instrumental music. It's beautiful.
No
Um,
thanks. Yeah.
yeah, when I listened to it, the word that kept coming up was like, "This is flawless." It's simple and flawless playing, and you talked in your liner notes about finding tonal resonances on the dulcimer, and I was hoping you could explain a little more about that and how you find those and what that really means.
Well, each instrument has its own tonal quality. And my friend Jerry Rockwell had built as a gift for me a concert professional grand kind of dulcimer, which was beautiful, and it has lovely tones, on the bass string and different parts of the instrument. It's fuller in some parts and um, uh, more expressive part perhaps in other parts. And that has to do with the weather and how you're playing and all kinds of things. But I just used his dulcimer. I think I used one or two other little dulcimers by Ron Ewing just for variety.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I meant by expressive kind of tonal qualities, is letting the dulcimer sing and using the voicing of that particular instrument along with the way I play it, by slowing it down and picking it up and putting expression into it, much like a jazz player would do.
Yeah. And that's there. Are all of your dulcimers four equidistant strings that you play, and how do you have those tuned?
I've always played four equidistant strings,
Uh-huh.
when 98% of most dulcimer players don't. Um, I usually play in mixolydian, which is DADD, but I also invent open tunings. I have a very traditional Kentucky kind of dulcimer, which is set up as a three string with a double melody string. And I use bagpipe tuning for that. So it's really whatever comes to me, whatever my whim is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like retuning. I like playing in a bunch of different tunes, but um, it's just sort of whatever mood you're in and what kind of feels right that day and what the weather tells you.
Yeah, I mean, most people, when they get a dulcimer, they get an instruction book and a video, and they take lessons, and there's a set style of playing. And I've never been like that with anything really in my life. I've always looked at the dulcimer as sort of a blank canvas to paint on.
Mm-hmm.
I was born musical, so I have that ability to just sort of create whatever I want without thinking about any limitations. It just never dawns on me.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to talk about your book a little bit more too, because you said you didn't really like this term self-help guru necessarily. That doesn't resonate with you as much. And in your book, you kind of talk about some of the woo-woo stuff that's out there, and you called yourself maybe a self-help book addict. Um, and I was wondering if you could share any red flags for people to look for when they're reading some of these self-help books that, maybe this isn't going to be a good fit, or why, if there's snake oil, how do you separate that from the good stuff?
Everybody wants to be happy, and life is not full of happiness. It's full of ups and downs. So depending upon how you were raised and whatever story you believe in, different people need different things at different times. So I happen to come from what I consider a dysfunctional family. So I was looking for a spiritual answer as well as a psychological one. So I would bounce around from self-help book to different courses and weight loss things, and they would be temporary fixes, but they never lasted. It wasn't until I got melanoma and I was given a death sentence, that I said, you don't have time to play around with this stuff. You better figure out, if you're going to change your life and get healthy, you better figure out how to get rid of this stress and other things that cause illness. Stress and inflammation are leading causes of illnesses and cancers. So you need to really change the story and get serious about this. So I asked myself 3 questions. What really matters? Which was my music, my dog, and my painting. Why does it matter? Because that's who I am naturally. And what am I going to do about it? I'm going to stop trying to, book tours. And, I had a lot of success as a musician. I became, quote, rich and famous. And I sought that out because I thought that was going to be happiness. But as it turns out, it wasn't. So the snake oil stuff, I think a person, and this is why I don't call myself a self-help guru or even a life coach. I just basically teach people what I did to turn my life around successfully. And I happen to use a dulcimer as part of that process. So you can call me whatever you want, but what I teach people, and if you look at my website, you'll see testimonials, or you can talk to people. I teach from my experience. This is what I did. This is what I no longer do. It's a matter of getting very serious and very real with yourself and saying, if I'm in an unhappy relationship that's toxic, I need to leave it. If I'm in a job I don't like, I need to change it. But a lot of people get very addicted to pain and suffering. They love being victims. And I was like that myself until I got a death sentence. And then I said, okay, well, enough of these self-help books. Now I need to look inside myself and say, Kevin, what do you want to do about this stuff? Because you're either going to get busy living or you're going to get busy dying. So decide. And I just knew I wasn't going to die. And I said, you're going to go to California and be a bohemian and follow your muse, and so be it. And that's what I did.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so impressive that you can just say, this is it. I'm done. I'm done doing that old stuff that wasn't working, and gonna start fresh.
Well, that's why I enjoy doing what I do with people. Now I still give concerts and I still make records and things like that, but that's not the focus of my life anymore.
Yeah. Let's see. The new album, Dulcimer Dreamland. Did you have a favorite song on the album, or one that was more fun to record or is more meaningful?
Well, there's one I wrote for my father called Jakey's Lullaby. and I really like that. It's in a capoed minor tuning, and my father and I were very close, and it kind of came to me as a last musical thought before I went in to record the record.
Mhm.
So I'd say that's probably my favorite, but I like all of them. I think the reason people really like that album is because all the songs are really great songs. There's sea shanties. I think there's only a couple original ones, but I mean, there isn't a bad song on the record, and I'm can be overly critical of my own playing. There are things I would have done differently, but I'm the only one that hears that. Everyone else just seems to say, "Oh wow, it's really nice to hear a Dulcimer album without a bunch of stuff on it.
Mhm.
Just a Dulcimer that's beautiful songs and sea shanties and Danny Boys on there and some songs people know." So it was a fun recording. I had a good time making it, and rare that I would do an album like that because the last album I made, which I really really love, is besides well, my favorite album is the Deviant Dulcimerist,
Mhm.
but there was a double album that came out with the book called Songs from the Book Between the Notes.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so there's a recording of that. All the songs that are in the book are you can hear on record. So those are kind of meaningful tunes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I didn't actually get to look at those. I think maybe I saw them on Amazon somewhere, but I didn't get to.
Yeah, you can listen to them on their iTunes or wherever people download or
Yeah.
buy music. Yeah.
Yeah, but after at the end of every chapter in the book, that you quote a song from you.
Yeah, yeah, that has something to do with the chapters or the subject of the chapters. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I think you already talked about the wink dulcimer a little bit. Is it just the wink or is it the cosmic wink?
I call it the Cosmic Winged Dulcimer or
Okay.
the Winged Cosmic Dulcimer.
Yeah.
And it's built for me. I'm the only one that sells them. It's built for me by the Dulcimer Shop
Mhm.
in Mountain View, Arkansas. And we've sold probably 40 or 50 of them. And I didn't expect to have more than maybe 80 or 100 built, and then that would be the end of them. But a lot of people like them because when you're doing Dulce meditation, it's fun to look down and see the planets in the sky.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's on the front of the album cover, and there's some other art too. I didn't know if that was your art or somebody else's.
Which album cover?
The Dulcimer Dreamland. There's
Oh,
the
that was done by a designer.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's nice. It was very soothing to kind of look at, and there's birds and kites and things.
whales and
Yeah, it really reminded me of San Diego.
yeah,
That's that. Yeah.
yeah.
So um, let's see. I think just the last thing I wanted to talk about. Um, oh, I wanted to ask about the half frets that you have on your dulcimer. You've got the 1.5 fret and the 6.5 fret. Have you always used the 1.5 fret too?
Well, Ron Ewing actually was the first one that came up with that idea. So I think that was 20 or 30 years ago. I've been playing Dulcimer 52 years, I think, since 1972. So I started with that.
Mhm.
And I started with the 6.5 and then added the 1.5. So all my dulcimers have the 1.5 fret now. Yeah, which is helpful because then you don't have to retune to play in minor.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and then the final thing, because next year is Dulcimer Players News 50th volume. Um,
Uh,
yeah, big anniversary year. And I've been digging through the archives. I got all the old issues from Ashley, and I've been taking a look at them. And you were actually in the first volume, volume one, number 5 from 1975. We've got you there. And you had a one page article on that one too, and you were talking about maybe what's going to happen with the dulcimer. That when you started playing, people would always ask you, "What's that funny looking guitar?"
yeah,
And it was starting to get more popular. Maybe people were recognizing it, um, And so your article was titled Some Questions. And you said the question is this: what is going to happen to the dulcimer in the next few years? And will we be able to accept the changes that do come along? As for my own opinion, I hope that we will always love and respect the traditional maker and player, and that we don't ever forget where the dulcimer came from. Is there a stopping point with the dulcimer? Opinions, what do they mean? Growth, life, what does that mean? Where and what will happen to the dulcimer in the years to come? So 50 years later, or almost 50 years later, what do you think about where the dulcimer has come, and what questions do you have for the next 50 years?
I would hope that more people discover the historical dulcimer people like Gene Ritchie and Howie Mitchell and Paul Clayton. These are sort of the pioneers of the mountain dulcimer. You know, what people know is the people who do these online dulcimer festivals, or people like us, like myself, or Jerry Rockwell, or Steven, but we all came from the lineage of Gene Ritchie, and Paul Clayton, and Howie Mitchell was one of the great innovators. So people don't really pay much attention to that, but they should. And there's a lot of old records on Folkway Records that talk about that, because that's part of the evolution of the dulcimer's history. It's important to know. The older makers, the traditional old makers, were very innovative in their styles. If you look at what they did in photographs of the Smithsonian Institute of their collection of dulcimers, you'll see they're very modern. I think what the dulcimer started out as a very traditional folk Appalachian instrument, and then modern players came along like Richard Frenia, myself, Joni Mitchell, and then there was sort of a West Coast style, which was very innovative and hippie-like, you know, with Capratoris, and I was an East Coast player, and that was more traditional-ish, and then there was a Midwest kind of style, which was sort of a blend of things. But then what really changed was the internet. And then you could suddenly go to these dulcimer festivals online because of COVID. So there were a lot of different styles and different players, and people were electrifying dulcimers and innovating them. And I think that the instrument's going to continue to evolve. Is a chromatic dulcimer still a dulcimer? It's a question. To me, it's more like a four-string ukulele. What makes a dulcimer is the modal scale. So I don't care personally for chromatic dulcimers, because I could do that on a ukulele, but it has its place just because I don't like it. In fact, as I get older, the less frets, the better for me. Not because I can't play them, but because as one discovers as they get older in life, less is more. So there's a lot of music in a really simple instrument like the dulcimer. There's always a very small segment of young players that come along, which is really nice to see. And they come up through things like dulcimer festivals in Winfield and things like that. My place, I guess, in the dulcimer history is depending who you talk to. You know, someone will say, "Oh my God, I got my start. I first heard a dulcimer listening to Kevin Roth at a folk festival, or I bought his album in '74." And other people will say, "Who is this guy? I've never heard of him. Everyone's talking about him. Where did he come from?" So, the basic place now to find dulcimer players and dulcimer information is either through the DPN, the Dulcimer Player News, which is great, or Facebook, right? But when the DPN started, that was started by a guy named Phil Mason, who lived in Bangor, Maine, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and he there was a mimeograph sheet of paper. I mean, it was really nothing. And
Yeah.
then he Maddie McNeil,
Mhm.
and she took it over, I guess, when they divorced or whatever that happened. And then from Maddie, she sold it to some, or she gave it to some other guy. I forget his name.
It's, Dan Landrum.
Yeah, and then Dan gave it to Ashley, and Ashley really, I thought, did a really wonderful job with it. But it's a taxing thing to do.
Hmm.
You come along with new enthusiasm. So there's
Yeah.
always more players and different ways of playing the dulcimer. So my advice to people is that know who these traditional players are. Listen to Paul Clayton. Listen to Howie Mitchell, marvelous player and builder, Gene Ritchie. Listen to Richard Freeney. Listen to Joni Mitchell. Um, how that whole thing happened is just bizarre.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Jo Ellen was a luthier, and she just had it in her mind that she was going to make a dulcimer, and she was going to either sell it to Joni Mitchell, the incredible string band, and she went to Berkeley Folk Festival, and Joni walked by, and Jo Ellen rather, just kind of like put it in front of her,
Mhm.
and bought it, and took it
Yeah.
to Crete, and wrote 4 songs on one of the most remarkable albums of all times. So I always kid Jo Ellen, it's like, and I have, as you mentioned, I have one of her instruments. She's only built 40 some of them. I'd say, fate is just incredible. Um, so it continues to go, and I'm happy to continue with it. I think what I'm doing now, no one has ever done with the dulcimer professionally, dulci meditation.
Yeah.
Slowly, people are hearing about it and learning about it and working with me as clients. We just did Redwood Dulcimer Festival, and it was almost sold out with
Yeah.
people interested in it. And so as my journey continues, the dulcimer kind of treks along with me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing instrument. I think that's why I'm so excited to be doing Dulcimer Players News because it seems like there's always something new you can do, but then you're always going to have that simple dulcimer there waiting for you when you're ready for it, and you can play the old simple songs, or you can do some funky new things, and um,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
in late '70s, early '80s, I remember a guy, I forget his name, but he uh, had a big tree trunk kind of a thing that he it was a spiral thing, and then at the end of it, it ended up as a dulcimer at the top of it. So it was like a root of a tree that was kind of like winding around.
mhm,
So and other people built solid body electric dulcimers, and it's been very innovative from the very beginning. Um, I even had something called a dulcinet made, which by David Field. It had 2 fretboards in a small spinet piano kind of thing. So all of these things have come and gone through the years because I've collected, had them built, and sold them,
mhm.
and I'm whittled down to I think a mere 9 of them.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's a great instrument. It's fun. It's very
yeah,
mysterious.
yeah,
Uh, Modal tunings are related to planets in the sky, so it's very innovative.
yeah. I think you said Redwood Dulcimer Days, and Butch Ross, I think, was playing on a 3D printed dulcimer, so that's
Yes, yes.
a little, a little different.
I don't know what that is, but
Yeah, you never know what's going to come next with it, is how I feel.
you never know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's everything I had questions about. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, my website's kevinroth.org if people want to know more, and
Yeah.
all my records and books and teaching and all that kind of stuff is up there, and I just continue to keep going and going. Apparently, I'm going for a long time. I have a friend who's a very accurate astrologist, and he never talks about death, but he happened to pull that out on me the other day, and he said, "Well, let me tell you when you're going to die." And before I said, "Don't tell me," he told
Oh no.
like really late into my 80s or early 90s, and he said, and you could even live longer. I said, well, I hope I can afford to do that. And he said, oh yeah, you'll be fine. So it looks like I'll be playing dulcimer maybe it's 50 years, 70 or 80 years by the time I'm done. You can
Yeah.
bury it in a dulcimer box.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking
Oh,
with me today.
pleasure talking to you. Thanks.
Yeah. Dulcimer Players News is a quarterly magazine that has been connecting the dulcimer community since 1975. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up so we can beat that algorithm. Then head on over to dpnews.com and subscribe to the magazine today. This interview will appear in the November 2023 issue. And don't forget to check out Kevin Roth at kevinroth.org.